tense atmosphere that existed on this serious occasion in the history of India, I am proposing to order a batch of Kaksas to reach Bombay and shall, if possible, reach Bombay myself for the purpose of begging you and Mr. Gandhi to reach a suitable settlement satisfactory to both parties. So then, on 29th August 1944, the Kaksas were fully concentrated in the meeting between Gandhi and Jinnah. The Kaksas were hoping that both tremendous and exceptional leaders would be on the same page on behalf of the people of India. The Kaksas met noticeable people such as Sir Karimboy Ibrahim and K.M. Munshi to advocate this meeting. Even though with Mashriqi's hard efforts the meeting failed on 27 September 1944. Mashriqi again requested Gandhi and Jinnah to solve their issues. Mashriqi gave Jinnah and Gandhi a deadline after in which he would have his own constitution for India. Jinnah and Gandhi did not reunite, and with such great hard work, Mashriqi did indeed produce the Constitution of Free India, which was published in 1945 in the Civil and Military Gazette. Allama Mashriqi and his companions drafted the constitution, and after on 2 legal committees were appointed to do more work on it. He planned a constitution that would help India to be undivided and fulfill the needs of various communities, but Gandhi, despite felt that constitution was in favor of the Muslims and he rejected it. On the other hand, Sir Tej Bahadur Sapru came to Kaksa's headquarters and accepted it. Many Muslims, including the Unionists, were in favor of the constitution. Nonetheless, Mashriqi still kept his ongoing efforts to keep India intact. However, it soon became obvious that partition was foreseeable. Almashriqi knew that the partition was unavoidable, and he could sense that the Muslims would suffer from this if they did not stand together. The fight, struggle, and death of Allama Mashriqi. On 2nd June 1947, the Mountbatten Plan announced the creation of Pakistan, but Mashriqi and the Kaksas protested because they were not happy about the area Pakistan was covering. However, Quaid-e-Azam had accepted the Mountbatten Plan on 9th June 1947. Mashriqi said that even if the division of India had to take place, he wanted Balochistan, Sindh, Kashmir, NWFP, Assam, and undivided Punjab and undivided Bengal, with the provinces of UP and Bihar to be the least Pakistan of the Muslims. Mashriqi had told Mr. Jinnah in 1942 that the present Pakistan of the 2 provinces 1400 miles apart could not last, and this would result in the ruin of 1 crore Muslims and the complete decimation of 5 crore Muslims of remaining India. On the other hand, British authorities believed that Mashriqi may plan to organize another movement against the unjustice partition plan, or at least try to capture Delhi in order to extend the boundaries of Pakistan. On 11th June 1947, Allama Mashriqi came along with 100 Khaksars, but he was arrested and then released soon after in Delhi. Allama Mashriqi asked 300,000 Khaksars to gather at the Khaksar camp in Delhi on 30th June 1947. In the announcement, he said that if the 300,000 Khaksar could not reach the camp, then he would abolish the Khaksar Tehreek. Only 70,000 to 80,000 Khaksar could gather due to restrictions which were obligatory by the government. The Khaksar Tehreek was disbanded on 4th July 1947. Mashriqi said, "About 3.5 months ago, I announced that if 3 lakh of Khaksars would not have rallied in Delhi, there would be no revolutionary power in the movement, and therefore it would be necessary to disband it." Now, with the establishment of Pakistan, which has been bestowed upon Muslims by the British, the last hope that 10 crore of Muslims who have been divided in various parts would continue the struggle of freedom has been lost. I therefore disband the movement. The message of disbanding the Khaksar movement was announced in Jamia Mosque, which is in Delhi, and in front of 100,000 people. When people heard about the Khaksar movement being abolished, they were speechless, shocked, and defeated with regret and sorrow. Allama Mashriqi was very disappointed on losing major part of India, which the Muslims had ruled for almost 10 centuries. 10 centuries. Mashriqi's vision of Pakistan was the whole India. He believed that since the British had taken India from the Muslims, and since the Muslims had ruled it for almost 1,000 years, it was their inheritance and right to get it back. Mashriqi felt that a separated Pakistan was impractical because the Muslims were not focused in one region. He recognized that since India was receiving a bigger portion of the land, the Hindus would try to dictate the Muslims in the area. Lastly, he was worried about the Muslims who would be left behind in India. It could be problematic for many Pakistanis to understand this because they may not feel a strong connection to the Muslims in India. But at the time, Muslims in all of India were united as one community. How could Mashriqi possibly have been happy when his community was being torn apart and millions of his Muslim brothers and sisters were going to be separated and would have to live under Hindu rule? Pakistanis who saw the fall of East Pakistan in 1971 can share to Mashriqi's sadness. The partition of India had a related effect, but there were celebrations for freedom and hope for a better future. Many were mournful and depressed that they were being divided from their families. Those who were left behind in India were unable to migrate to Pakistan also felt betrayed. Many Muslims were upset that they were losing a huge area of land to Hindu rule. Even with Mashriqi's disappointment, he accepted the creation of a divided India. Nevertheless, he could not settle with the idea of the division of the Muslim provinces of Bengal and Punjab. Mashriqi also believed that other parts of India, like Assam, should have been part of Pakistan. He mourned the injustice that was done to the Muslims through the partition plan and later through the Radcliffe Award. After the creation of Pakistan, Mashriqi kept his efforts in various ways to remedy the injustice, but it was too late. Due to the partition, Mashriqi could not get any support of the Pakistani government. His criticism of the partition plan was unfavorable for the Muslims, and it was criticized by the Muslim League at the time. Nonetheless, as the time slowly faded away, many people began to understand the mistakes that were made in the partition scheme. On 14th August 1947, Pakistan appeared on the map as an independent country. However, Mashriqi was highly disturbed to see that Kashmir was not a part of Pakistan. Mashriqi protested and asked the government of Pakistan to resolve the issues with the government of India. Mashriqi also asked Pakistan government to make sure that the government of India did not take the issue of Kashmir to the United Nations. The reason is Mashriqi believed that if the issue was taken to United Nations, then it would never be solved. It could be seen that Mashriqi's warning once again proved correct, and the issue of Kashmir still stands unresolved. On 31st October 1947, Mashriqi started organizing the Muslims under the banner of the Islam League to protect the rights of Muslims in India, liberate Kashmir, and uplift the poor masses in Pakistan. Mashriqi tried to manage his followers who were left behind in India against this act, and after knowing about the activities of Mashriqi's followers in India, a very substantial number of them were arrested by the Indian government. Nehru appealed to the Pakistan government to take action against Mashriqi. The Pakistani government immediately took action and banned any literature of the Islam League and made sure it was not distributed in Pakistan or India. In 1949, Mashriqi sent a representation to the Secretary General of the United Nations. The representation dealt with the denial of human rights to the Muslims in India. He then planned on pleading the case in person to the Human Rights Commission of the United Nations in the United States. Mashriqi wanted to show the current problem of Kashmir and the Muslims in India before the Commission. He received a positive answer from the Human Rights Commission. Ex-Premier of Undivided Bengal, Hussain Shahid Suhadri, was also going to accompany him to plead the case. Though, when Mashriqi applied for a passport, the governor of Punjab refused after a gap of 1 month. The decision by the government was widely regretted by the people. Even though Pakistan had already been created, Mashriqi was still not allowed to operate as a free man. The government kept a close eye on Mashriqi and monitored his every move. On 2nd May 1950, Mashriqi's house in Lahore was carefully searched. During the search, copies of the pamphlet Akhri Umeed and other literature of the Islam League were found and seized. On the same day, other places connected with the Islam League, Kaksas, they were also known as Razakars, were also raided. On 3rd October 1950, Mashriqi and his two sons were arrested in connection with the pamphlet Khitab-e-Lahore. On 4th December 1950, the government issued a statement to the reporters banning an Islam League conference in Karachi. On 11th January 1951, Mashriqi and the Razakars were arrested under the Punjab Public Safety Act in advance of the forthcoming elections in Punjab. The government had no justification to arrest them and did so in order to prevent Mashriqi and the Razakars from playing any part in the elections. While Mashriqi was in jail, his son Majid ud-Din Amjad died on 12th April 1951 and was buried in Mashriqi's absence. Mashriqi also wrote a poem in memory of Majid ud-Din Amjad. Mashriqi only came to know of his son's death when he was allowed to visit Lahore for 2 hours on 14th April 1951. Mashriqi spent half a year in jail, and his detention was extended for another 6 months. Despite the fact that his health was getting worse, on 11th July 1951, he wrote to the government stating that he hadn't committed any crime and that he was being kept in jail without a trial. He also informed the government that as a form of protest against his unjust imprisonment, he was fasting until they granted him his release. Because of fasting, Mashriqi began to lose weight. On the other hand, in order to